And we are recording, so we'll start off by saying thank you to Barb Kirkmeyer and Sally Boccella for joining us tonight for our candidate forum for Colorado Senate District 23. This webinar is brought to you by the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce as part of our education series. We also want to make a special note to thank the Broomfield Enterprise. They are our webinar partner for all of the webinars that we do through the Zoom platform. And Al Manzi and the folks at the Enterprise are big supporters of the Chamber of Commerce and of course our community. So we want to thank them for their partnership in helping us put on this candidate forum tonight. As I mentioned, this is for for Colorado Senate District 23. Barbara Kirkmeyer is the Republican candidate and Sally Boccella is the Democratic candidate. And we thank all of our attendees for being here tonight. If you missed me saying this in our pre-show, if there is a question that any attendee would like to ask as we move through the evening and you have not already submitted that question to the chamber, you can ask those questions in the chat and we will try to get to those questions in the order that we get them. And with that, I'll hand it over to tonight's moderator, who is Ross Maak, the editor of the Broomfield Enterprise. Ross, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Appreciate that. I am the editor of the Enterprise, and I will just run down the rules here real quick. We're going to start off with a 2-minute opening remark from each of our candidates. I flipped a coin earlier, and it came up Barb. So Barb, I will have you lead off with the 2-minute opening statement. We'll follow that up with Sally's. And then I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. These questions have been submitted by chamber members, by community members, and obviously we have a few hopefully that will come in live as we go. So there will possibly be some follow-up questions as we proceed through. Each time I ask a question, I'll just alternate who goes first. I'll have a minute for you to answer, and then I'll pass it over to the other person. I will be fairly rude and interrupt you once we get to that minute, and pass it on to the next person. And then if you do see me messing around on my phone, I promise I'm not updating my fantasy football team. I'm checking the time and doing all of that stuff. So, and then at the end, we will wrap it up. I will definitely wrap it up before 7 so that everybody can be on their way this evening. But we will have 2-minute closing remarks at the end as well. So, and that's pretty much it. If I do have a question that is directly to one of the candidates, I will start with that candidate on that question, and then the other candidate will have a minute to respond if they have anything else that they want to add. Otherwise, a good majority of the questions would be geared toward the both of you. So, and with that, we can kick it over to Barb Kirkmeyer and let her start with her opening statement.
Okay, great. Thank you. And first of all, I just want to thank the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce for having us this evening and hosting this forum. It's a great way for us to get out and get our message out and get to know people a little bit better and get to know more about the Broomfield Chamber. I also want to just say hi to Sally. We actually have never met, so it's nice to meet you virtually, I guess. So thank you very much. With that, my name is Barbara Kirkmeyer. I am running for state senate here in District 23. Just so you know a little bit more about me, I am a 4th-generation Coloradoan. Grew up in North Jefferson County on a dairy farm. And in fact, along with being a county commissioner, I tell folks I'm in my 20th year being a county commissioner, but I served 2 terms back in the 90s and went off and honored my term limits and then came back in 2009. So I'm right now finishing up my last term, my last year of being a county commissioner. But along with that, I've also been a small business owner. I owned a small business in Fort Collins with my sister, so I have an understanding of what's going on in small businesses and how those are run. I also have owned a dairy farm for over 15 years and farming operations here in Southwestern Weld for over 27 years. So I have a strong background, not only in business and in government, but also in agriculture as well. Senate District 23 is a large district. It encompasses all of the city and county of Broomfield, but it also goes straight up the I-25 corridor and covers a lot of Weld County, a lot of rural Weld County. So agriculture is important, transportation is important to us, and also, you know, just being able to have the ability to work with all sorts of folks in different walks of life throughout this district. And I believe I am uniquely qualified to do that. One of the other things that I've also done in my career is I worked for Governor Bill Owens, eventually being on his cabinet as the executive director of the Department of Local Affairs. Also in that role, I was at one point for about a year, the state's emergency manager. So I have a lot of background there on managing emergencies, and in fact was managed the Colorado's response to Hurricane Katrina. So again, I have a lot of background, a lot of unique experiences that I hope to take with me to the state Senate and to the legislature, experience that I can bring forward to the benefit of all citizens in the state of Colorado. So thank you very much.
Well timed, Barb. Thank you for that. I did forget to mention too, are you both able to see me okay?
I am.
Okay, so with about 15 seconds left, rather than trying to talk over you since we're doing the Zoom thing, I'm just going to kind of raise my hand and give you some kind of signal that you got about 15 seconds left. So Barb, I didn't have to do that, so thank you for doing that. And I'll pass it over to Sally.
Well, I also want to thank the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce and Broomfield Enterprise for not only hosting but facilitating this forum. And I also want to say hi to Barbara. We've actually met several times, Barbara. We met at the Greeley July Parade and also at the Attorney General's Town Hall. That was actually the last time I saw you, and it feels like so long ago, so that's probably why you forgot. So again, my name is Sally Boccella, and I'm running to be your next state senator for District 23. I'm a first-generation American and first-generation college graduate. I'm a wife, a mother of 2 public school students, and 2 rescue dogs. I believe that to be an authentic representative, you must be committed to service. I have had the honor of working with several organizations like the League of Women Voters, the World Food Bank, and the Endangered Species Coalition. I'm a constituent advocate. I bring people together with their elected officials on the local, state, and federal levels to talk about issues that are important to them. As your next state senator, I will continue to do that. I currently serve on 3 school district committees, and I deliver food commodities to seniors weekly. My professional experience is radio broadcasting, film production, marketing, and promotions. I currently work in education as a substitute teacher. COVID-19 has brought into focus several issues that we already knew about that we can't ignore any longer, like inequities in education, mental health, workers' rights, climate crisis, broadband access, and access to affordable housing and healthcare. We are a community-focused campaign. I have been delivering emergency food boxes to people in the district, and we also deliver DIY masks to our hospitals, including Children's Hospital in Broomfield and other hospitals in Northern Colorado, along with schools. So if there's anyone out there that is a seamstress or has been doing DIY masks, we are in demand of students and children's masks currently.
Okay,
I'm running to represent.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to bail right into the questions here, and we'll have Sally lead off. First question, 1 minute to answer. Where do you stand on the ballot initiative regarding the Gallagher Amendment, and why?
I actually support the Gallagher Amendment B, the Gallagher repeal, because it will help take the burden off of the business sector. But one of the other things I think is really important to look at is how our Colorado tax policy is structured. It's structured to basically increase the disparities in our communities, and especially in our vulnerable communities. And with repealing Gallagher, it really does help move us one step closer to closing that gap. You know, the other thing too is, you know, with the 45-55 split, if we don't repeal Gallagher, that will go down to 5 point something, which is devastating. And because we need so many public services right now, and they look to those policies, those tax credits to get those. So I definitely am supportive of that.
Okay, thank you. Barb, do you want me to repeat the question, or are you good?
I'm good at this time, thank you.
Okay.
So with regard to repealing Gallagher, the amendment that's on the ballot, I am opposed to repealing Gallagher. And for the very simple fact is that it will increase our residential property tax rate. It will absolutely do nothing to help the businesses or the commercial rate or even the vacant rate. That will stay the same. That assessment ratio is at, for commercial, is at 29%. It's not moving, it's not going down. Repealing Gallagher won't do anything to assist businesses. But what it will do is it will freeze the residential assessment ratio for property taxes, for residential property taxes, and it will affect, instead of it going down because of the way Gallagher and Tabor work together, it will in effect increase our taxes in years to come. And so I'm opposed to that. I think because of COVID-19, because of the economic downturn that we're in and recession in, this is the absolute worst time to try and increase taxes.
Okay, thank you, Barb.
Sure.
Barb, we'll have you lead off on this one. What is your position on the disallowances of federal tax carrybacks related to the CARES Act that was passed in June?
So I'm sorry, could you repeat that question again?
No problem. What is your position on the disallowance of federal tax carrybacks related to the CARES Act that was passed in June?
I will tell you, honestly, I'm not as familiar with the disallowances regarding the federal carrybacks, tax disallowances. I do believe that the, is this in regard to, maybe it's in regard to House Bill 1420, I'm not exactly sure. But with regard to the tax exemptions and the, that were proposed in House Bill 1420, I'm happy to say that because of what happened at the state legislature, that they walked that back and so that it didn't hurt businesses. But in my opinion, anything that goes forward that would hurt businesses, especially again, in a time when we're in an economic downturn, that we should be avoiding that. We should be looking at how can we work with these businesses, because quite frankly, government doesn't create jobs, businesses create jobs. And at this point, there's a lot of considerations, a lot of problems that we need to take into consideration. At one point in Colorado, we had over 450,000 people on unemployment.
Okay. Sally, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, I'm a little confused by the wording of it, I have to tell you.
And I would love to expand on it, except that somebody else wrote it, so I'm not sure what their intent was behind it. So I'll let you kind of answer it as best you can. So
okay, thanks.
the question as worded is, what is your position on the disallowances of federal tax carrybacks related to the CARES Act that was passed in June?
I'm not sure what they mean by carrybacks. I have to say that there were some things that many business owners and actually many property owners were very upset about that they weren't able to get access to. Also municipalities, because they didn't have X amount of residents. So I'm not sure if that's what they're meaning. I do think that we need to work with the federal government in regards to getting more relief to the state. Through the CARES Act, right now they have another one that's on the House that's actually going to the Senate. It doesn't look like it's going to be voted on anytime soon, which is unfortunate. So I'm just not sure if I'm understanding the question. I apologize, but I will write that down so that I can follow up with that person now.
Okay. Okay, Sally, we'll have you lead off on this one. And I'm not sure if everybody's getting it, but I am getting a little bit of a funky feedback when you're talking, Sally. So you might want to sit a little closer to the mic, or it's just a thought. I'm not sure, but
is that better?
Okay, that is, yeah, I think so. Okay, next question. Past candidates have supported personhood amendments, which would have an impact on reproductive freedom and access to some types of birth control. What is your position on a woman's right to choose?
I'm sorry, do I go first?
Yes, this is for you, Sally.
Okay, thank you. Well, Colorado has been a leader in reproductive freedom. And as a matter of public policy, I support safe, accessible, and legal reproductive health care because it is health care. I oppose Proposition 115 because banning abortion will not end abortion. I really appreciate the question.
Okay. Barb, would you like me to repeat that?
No, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, I do appreciate the question. I think voters have spoken on this issue a couple of times in the past, and they're going to get the chance to speak on it again. I think they've made it very clear that they don't want public funding to go towards abortion, but in this case, it's a little bit different situation. I am a pro-life candidate. I do believe in the sanctity of life, and again, I believe that the voters are going to get the opportunity to vote on Proposition 115.
Okay.
Thank you.
This one I'll start with Barb. Broomfield recently passed 2,000-foot setbacks and exclusionary zoning for oil and gas production. Do you support the COGCC's proposed new rule for 2,000-foot setbacks?
Thank you again for the question. What I do support is Broomfield's ability to have local control and local understanding with regard to what's going on in their community. I'm a strong supporter of local control, strong supporter of land use at the local level. I think it's been very clear in the law that a location and siting, also known as setbacks, is clearly and explicitly that of the local government. So I support that the city of Broomfield has the opportunity to do that. And that they should be making those decisions because they are the ones that are held accountable by their citizens.
Okay, Sally?
Thank you. I also agree with level control, and with the 2,000 setback, I think that's a great way for Broomfield to listen to their constituents. Their constituents have been loud and clear in regards to those issues, in regards to public health, and I think this is a great way for them to get that satisfaction from the commissions, So, yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll start with Sally on this one. What would you do to help alleviate the shortage of workforce housing?
So are we talking about affordable housing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So actually, I think that we need to start looking at housing funding, again, through the federal government to bring down to the state. And then we also have to look at some innovative ideas like tiny houses, looking at ways to expand our, when we have new developments, that they're very diverse and they're not a socioeconomic situation where they're catering to one group of property owner. So they really should be inclusive and diverse. So they have different areas in those developments where they offer different pricing for different people. So it becomes a very diverse community.
Okay, Barb?
Thank you. I think the issue of affordable, attainable, or workforce housing, again, is one that is best handled at the local level. They know their community best. They know their zoning requirements. They know their planning requirements. And I believe that it's handled best there. So I don't think that the legislature should interfere with that. But along those lines, as the director of the Department of Local Affairs, I oversaw programs such as the Community Development Block Grant Program and the Community Services Block Grant Program. Both of those programs help with affordable and attainable housing by providing funding from the federal government that's already existing to local governments so that they can get important infrastructure in place, such as water and sewer infrastructure, because, if we can afford that and we can get that in at a lower cost rate, then that helps keep the developer's price down. So that keeps the cost of housing down and it helps everybody all the way around.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Barb, we'll have you start with this one. The Rocky Mountain Metro Airport is at the intersection of 3 large counties. The number of flights in and out of the airport is growing dramatically, boosting the economies of some communities, but increasing the level of noise in others. How do you deal with the 2 sides of this economic coin?
So again, it sounds like your chamber is really involved in local affairs that are happening there. This again is another local government issue, and it's between Jefferson, Boulder, and Broomfield counties, right? What used to be the Jefferson County Airport, I know because I grew up fairly close to there, is now the Rocky Mountain Airport. And I would suggest, again, using the land use tools that Broomfield and Boulder and even Jefferson County all have you know, as development encroached upon the airport, I'm assuming that they had a overlay district, an airport overlay district in place. If not, I would encourage them to put something like that in place. If there's something that I can do as a person who's done a lot of land use decision-making, land use planning, I'm more than happy to sit down with any of the elected officials, the planning directors from any of those 3 counties, and see if there's some ideas that I can throw out to them to help them solve their issues. But they need to work together in a collaborative way to work that out.
Okay, Sally?
Yeah, I also agree this is a local issue, but this is a great opportunity for the different counties and the elected officials and also community leaders to get involved and bring everyone to the table. I truly believe that that is how you can create something that's a problem-solving solution that benefits everyone involved, right? So that would be my suggestion for something like this.
Okay, thanks. We'll start with Sally on this one. Before COVID-19 hit, there was a lot of news and activism in Colorado about safety and health for people in immigration detention. What do you believe Colorado's role should be in the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of immigrants detained in federal facilities in Colorado?
On a state level?
Yeah, I mean, basically, what's Colorado's role in this?
Okay, so I do think that we do have a role in trying to make sure that we have comprehensive immigration reform. I also think too that in these facilities, there, you know, I don't know if we need policy necessarily, but we might, because if we're not seeing satisfaction and we're not seeing people treated with dignity, then we'd have to go to a policy effort to make sure that that is happening. But that would be my suggestion.
Okay. Barb?
With regard to federal facilities, the state of Colorado has very limited, if any, control over those federal facilities. So I'm not sure that there's really anything we can do there. I would agree with Sally that we always need to figure out ways to treat people with dignity. So that's why I'm very proud to talk about one thing in my record. It's a little bit different than the question, but one thing in my record where we recently, over the last couple of years, sold our hospital, worked with the Attorney General's office on that, sold our hospital and created one of the largest foundations to provide funding for health and education services in Weld County. So it's specifically that foundation is set up to help fund health services to those underinsured and uninsured people in Weld County. And it specifically has to be used in Weld County. So that was a resource that was in my community, used to be the county hospital that eventually we sold, and we invested those funds right back into our community to, again, help assist and ensure people get access, those people that are underinsured and uninsured, access to healthcare services.
And this one will go back to Barb, and it's along the same lines. What is your stance on universal health care?
I think there's all sorts of possibilities and things that we need to look at with regard to healthcare in our state. I think we need to make sure that, one, that everybody has affordable healthcare and that they can access healthcare as well. I think that also that the state needs to make sure that they don't basically overprice it for the consumer or even for the insurance companies, that we need to find a balance, that we all need to come to the table and ensure that we are providing access and affordability when it comes to healthcare in the state of Colorado.
Ross, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. What is your stance on universal health care?
Great. Well, currently there's 8% of uninsured Coloradans, and I do believe that we should have universal health care. I do believe in single payer. However, I do think that our Colorado Health Public Option is one way to move us forward to making sure that we have those 8% covered. We also need in rural areas too, we need more of more providers so that we can, you know, so we can talk about how it's more competitive. But, you know, I hate to use that word when we talk about healthcare, competitive, because, you know, the bottom line is when your loved one or you are sick, you're going to get the best care possible, right? So I think it's really important that we as a state, we offer those benefits and we offer those kinds of providers so that they have, so people have the ability to make those choices. And so it is more affordable and they have access to comprehensive healthcare here. because otherwise they become a tax burden to our society. So, thank you.
Okay, Sally, we'll have you lead off on this one. Broomfield's moratorium on retail marijuana sales expires in February of 2021. Do you support retail marijuana sales in Broomfield and the rest of the district and the tax revenue and jobs it would provide?
Well, I can tell you that I do love that we do have this going to the voters, and I support that. The voters will make that decision. In regards to an economic standpoint, in regards to the district, I would hate to see any kind of tax dollars going outside of the district when we know people are purchasing marijuana, and it would be great to be able to have Broomfield keep that money right there in Broomfield. So, but again, I'm just happy to see this going to the voters. So they'll make the decision. Thanks. Thanks for the question.
Okay, Barb.
Thank you for the question again. And also, the Constitution allowed for this local vote to occur and for local governments to make this decision. I think it's, accommodate the Broomfield City Council for putting it back to a vote of the people and letting them make that decision, because I think that's the right thing to do. It's my understanding they voted on it before, but I think that's what local government officials are supposed to do, and make sure that their voters they're all on the same page. So again, the Constitution allowed for this vote to occur. They allow for local governments to make these types of decisions. So I think it's great that the local government officials in Broomfield are saying to their citizens, what do we need to do here? And hopefully they listen to them. I think it's a local government issue though.
Okay. Barb, we'll have you lead off here. What current state laws and regulations inhibit business rights, and would you pledge to try and eliminate these or repeal them during your term?
So I'm not sure that I could go over and try and pick out all the laws that I think probably hurt business rights or go against businesses. But I will tell you, I have a proven track record of looking at regulations from a health, safety, and welfare perspective, because I think that's our first responsibility as a local elected official, that we always need to do that. But we need to look at those. And in my track record, I have worked to streamline regulations so that it makes sense for everybody, because you've got to bring everybody to the table. Some regulations are necessary, but maybe not all regulations. So I think, again, that's where you bring people to the table. You look at the health, safety, and welfare factors first. You should be able to justify every rule or regulation or law that you put into place. And yes, if it could be streamlined or eliminated, I would look to do that.
Okay,
Ross,
Sally?
could you ask the question again? Sorry.
You bet, I'd be happy to. Which current state laws and regulations inhibit business rights? And would you pledge to try and eliminate these or repeal them during your term?
Well, I can tell you that I'm very pro-business, and I'm also pro-workers. So I don't know which specific laws they're asking about, but I do think that if we're talking about COVID and mask mandates, I do think that we have to follow public health officials. We have to follow the governor's the mandate to because it is a law, even though it's from the governor. And I think that it goes into it's also something that the businesses need, that they are doing. They're following state regulations. They're doing everything they can to minimize the spread of COVID and also keep their doors open. So I think as an elected official, it is our responsibility to support those business owners by following state mandates or whatever's in place at that time in regards, especially now, a pandemic, to help those businesses stay open. So I appreciate that question. I don't know if I was able to answer it is exactly what they were looking for, but okay. Thanks.
All right, this one's back to you, Sally. Do you have any direct experience of a family member using Medicaid to meet healthcare needs? If not, how will you educate yourself about that system if you are elected?
I actually don't. However, I have been actually working with the Colorado Public Health Association and also Colorado Indivisible Group, who's been working on a lot of the health universal health care, looking at health projects in regards to educating candidates on the healthcare system and how we can move forward with that. So I would go to, I would seek guidance from people who are already in that industry, and also, you know, learn as much as I can so that I can be supportive. That is one of our essential things that we offer at the state level, and it's something that is always looked to be cut, but we shouldn't be cutting it. So yeah, I would definitely do everything I can to learn as much as I can about how to keep that in place and maybe even expand it.
Okay, Barb?
Could you repeat the question, please?
You bet. As soon as I find it again. Do you have any direct experience of a family member using Medicaid to meet healthcare needs? If not, how will you educate yourself about that system if you are elected?
Thank you. I don't have any direct family members that I'm aware of that use Medicaid, but as a county commissioner, we are very involved in the Medicaid system through our Human Services Department and through our Health Department. So we have contracts with both the state and the federal government essentially to administer Medicaid for the, again, underinsured or uninsured within our county. So I have a fairly decent knowledge of the Medicaid system and how it works. I also know how they can go in and work to apply for it and get it. And I know how it works from the county perspective on how we administer it and implement Medicaid within our county.
Okay. And marginally piggybacking off of that one, Barb, we'll have you start out. Do you want to repeal the state health exchange or fund it more? What are your other thoughts regarding the exchange?
I think there's been a lot of difficulties with the exchange and being able to fund that exchange. So again, I'm not sure that the legislators are willing to cut Medicaid or cut the exchange at this point, but I do know that just recently, the example I want to use is with the opioid treatments and the program that they were trying to push forward. And I believe Governor Polis just vetoed that because the state isn't able to afford it. So I think in anything that we do as a state legislature, especially now during this economic downturn, but really at any time, we need to ensure that consumers can afford it, that it's actually providing the service that it said it was going to provide, and that our state can afford it.
Okay, Sally?
I'm going to ask you to repeat the question. Thank you.
Sure. Again, I have to find it. Oh, do you want to repeal the state healthcare exchange or fund it more? What are your other thoughts regarding the exchange?
Well, I don't want to repeal it, that's for sure. I think that that's a tool that we have to help, you know, decrease that uninsured percentage here in Colorado. One of the things I would like to bring up is there was actually a really great collaboration between, I think it was Peak Alliance. I want to say it was Summit County, but I'm not sure what county it was, where they brought the provider, and they brought like 3 people together. So it was like the provider, the actual person who couldn't afford insurance, and then I don't know if it was a state entity, but anyway, they were able to bring all of these people to the table and work out a win-win for not only the, you know, the insurer, but also for the provider and also, you know, I can't remember, I think it was the state, but anyway, I thought that was a great way to show the collaboration that can be done in situations like this. You know, some of the things that I've done in my past is brought.
Okay, sorry, we're at a minute.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sally, have you lead this one off? What are your ideas on an energy policy for Colorado, and how do you see this impacting future generations? Do you have a policy or a plan to transition us to renewable energy, and what is it?
I'm going to touch on what I just mentioned before. So I've been talking to a lot of workers in the energy sector, and you know what's on their minds is are they going to lose their jobs, because they see the writing on the wall too. And for me, I think that we have to start having these conversations now. And in 2019, the Colorado General Assembly just passed a just transition committee that's going to be working on this, where they brought, workers and different community members and businesses to the table to talk about this. Some of my ideas for policy is to incentivize, like I said, geothermal heating and cooling. It's a great, easy transition for pipe fitters and millwrights. Also, the other one is to really incentivize hemp fiber. I think that's an industry that we need to look at. We need to grow that industry here in Colorado. There's so many things you can do with hemp in regards to climate crisis. So I would love to see something like that incentivized in new development for construction products.
Okay, Barb?
Again, I'm going to go back to one of my previous answers when I talked about the new energy economy and the good path that we've been moving forward. That was approximately about 10 years ago. I think that we need to go back and learn from what we've done. Look over the course of the last 10 years, remember what we've done really well, tweak what maybe we haven't. But again, we need to look at it's all of the above. And as we go in through any kind of energy policy, we need to also understand what is, one, the return on investment and the cost benefit analysis of that energy and that energy source, and what it means to the consumer. I can support electrification. I support electric cars. I'm on several transportation committees where we work and support, electric vehicles and electric, filling stations throughout the state. I also supported natural gas filling stations throughout the state. But with the electric cars part of it, we really need to look at our electric grid. I mean, after all, we don't want to become like California where we have these rolling brownouts, or just have brownouts, quite frankly, or blackouts. So I think we need to really look and examine how consumers can afford it. I think that's an important part of the policies as well.
Okay. Barb, we'll have you lead off on this one. Which current state laws and did I already do that one?
I think so.
No, I think we're good. Which current state laws and regulations inhibit business rights?
Yes, you asked us that one earlier.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I think
My
I started.
highlighter broke. All right. What is the litmus test of rights you would use before voting to add any new laws or regulations that affect businesses?
Okay, so what is the litmus test that I would use?
Before voting to add any new laws or regulations that affect businesses.
I think, again, we need to always look at the health, safety, and welfare aspects of any law, any rule, or any regulation, or any law that we put in place that would say, let's do some rules and regulations. I think that's the first thing that we need to look at. What is the benefit to our state and to our citizens with regard to that law and that rule or regulation? So that would be the first litmus test, or the first part of it. The other part is, again, it goes back to what is the truly, what's the cost benefit analysis? What's our return on investment? Is it something that's going to work to help incentivize creating more jobs, or is it going to be something that's going to put that business out of business? So I think particularly in this economic downturn, but really anytime, we need to look at, are we incentivizing the creation of more jobs, or are we looking at putting businesses in such a difficult position that they can't afford to stay in business any longer?
Okay, Sally?
So when I look at this, though, I just don't look at businesses. I look across the board when you're creating policy. I think it's vitally important that we create policy that has strong language, that also looks that it doesn't weaken other laws that we already have. And how we do that is that we collaborate, right? And we bring all people to the table, all perspectives to the table. So in regards to businesses or any time that you're creating policy, that's the litmus test I look at, and I will continue to do as a state legislator.
Sally, you'll start this one. What legislation would you propose to help parents dealing with remote learning for their children?
I'm going to say this is probably a broadband question. So right here in Weld County, we are having many difficulties in Johnstown, Milliken, and even in Broomfield, in the outskirts of Broomfield, where you're dropping calls and we're dropping Wi-Fi. Again, I think it has to do with competition. That's one thing. But, here in Johnstown, many people are talking about, why don't we just do what Longmont did? And that would be great, except we would have to create a grid. We don't have the infrastructure for broadband right now, and that would cost us a lot of money, like millions. So I have to say that I really like what Broomfield is doing in regards to that. They did not create the grid and put $70 million onto the taxpayers, because let's face it, by the time you pay that off, if you even do, there might be a new tech that comes in. So I love what you've done in Broomfield, where you're laying the fiber around government services first, so that the community has access to that. And then as you go, you keep going. And it's only maybe $1 million to the taxpayers a year. So that's something that I would love to look at in our area.
Okay, thanks. Barb?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question, please?
No problem. What legislation would you propose to help parents dealing with remote learning for their children?
I'm not sure there's legislation that I could propose to help parents deal with their kids at home that are doing remote learning. But I do think that we should support our parents and support these folks. If they feel that it's necessary, they feel safer having their children at home in that type of learning environment, then I think it's important that we support those parents, while at the same time we make sure that we're not penalizing the school district. You know, we are coming up on the October count. Or like tomorrow. So in this next month, they'll do a count, or not tomorrow, tomorrow's the 30th. So in a couple of days in October, they'll do this count of the number of children that are in their schools and in their school districts, and that's how they receive their funding. I think it's an antiquated way of looking at how do we get dollars to the classroom. And so I think as a legislator, that's something that we need to look at. Again, we can support our parents who want to have remote learning because they feel it's safer, but at the same time, not to harm or penalize our school districts with an antiquated law. Let's see what we can do.
Okay, Barb, we'll start out with you on this one. And I believe we'll go 2 more questions, and then we'll have closing statements. So, Barb, is Colorado funding colleges and universities at a proper amount?
I believe they are, yes. Not all universities get a lot of funding from the state, but I believe they are. I think it's important that universities, they have their own board, that they are able to determine what goes on within their university. And if they get too much funding from the state or too much funding from the federal government, then you have other people interfering with the government or governing of your college. So I believe that they are.
Okay, thank you. Sally?
I believe this is probably a question related to Proposition 117, the Enterprise measure on the ballot in this November. I think that I actually oppose 117, and I don't think that we're giving our higher education proper funding. So I think that if that passes, that will decrease funding not only for such enterprises as healthcare providers, but also for our higher ed. Yeah, I oppose 117. And I don't think that we're doing enough.
Okay. Because of your shorter answers, I'm going to go 2 more after this. This one, we'll start with Sally. Why did you choose to affiliate with your party?
So I actually wasn't, I was an independent. And I became a Democrat because I resonated with most of the things that the Democrats resonate with. But one of the main reasons was I follow legislation, and I was following Governor Polis as a congressman. And so when I found out that he was going to be running for governor, I decided to declare Democrat so that I could caucus. And I've been down the rabbit hole ever since, so to speak. Yeah, so I'm very engaged in my local politics, and so that's why I chose to be a Democrat, because I believe in our values.
Okay, Barb?
Yes, I chose to be a Republican because I believe the core values in the Republican Party, and those are to be fiscally responsible, that we believe in limited government, that we believe in individual responsibility, and we believe that government should only do those things that you cannot do for yourself. So in other words, they should fund things like public safety, like education, like public infrastructure. So that's why I've affiliated with being a Republican.
Okay. Last question before closing remarks. Barb, we'll have you lead the way on this one. What makes you uniquely qualified for this office?
Thank you. I believe I'm uniquely qualified for this office because of the experience and the knowledge and leadership proven track record that I bring to the table. As I stated before, I have years of experience in owning a small business, so I have a small business background. I have years of experience of being in agriculture, owning a dairy farm, owning irrigated farmland. So I have that agricultural background as well. Not only have I been a county commissioner for 20 years, serving my community, which I greatly appreciate and love to do, but I also worked in state government in an executive department in an executive capacity. So I understand how the state works, how the state budget works, the ins and outs of that, because I've had to prepare the budget from the other side for the state. So I believe that all of those experiences, my proven track record of leadership, of bringing people together, of building consensus and collaboration is what makes me uniquely qualified to be a state senator.
Okay, thank you. Sally?
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I believe I'm uniquely qualified because I've worked in several areas of industry. I was brought up by a single mom who had to work several jobs, who didn't have healthcare or affordable housing. And I'm also a first-generation American, so I know what it's like to work hard to create your American dream. I want to expand those opportunities. As a constituent advocate, I have worked with our elected officials on the state and federal levels. I definitely bring people together. I have a proven track record for that. And I do think that when it comes to creating policy, you need to be able to listen and empathize with your constituents. And it doesn't matter what party they're with. You need to be able to represent a whole district. And so I will bring that to the table. I will also build alliances and create partnerships to get things done.
And I humbly apologize for this, but I just saw that we do have a question from the galleries, and we do have just a couple minutes, so I'm going to sneak it in here. We'll just keep going with how we've been. Sally, we'll have you answer this one first. I'm sure it won't be controversial at all. Do you think that President Trump actually deserves the label conservative?
You know, I'm not a Republican. So I think that is actually something that a conservative would be best to answer because he has declared the Republican Party as his party to run for office. So I'm not the best person to ask that question. So I will defer to Barbara on that one.
Okay. Go ahead, Barb.
Yeah, and I'm sure people have different definitions with regard to conservative. From my perspective, I believe that President Trump is a fiscal conservative.
Okay.
Thank you.
You got it. Barb, we will have you lead the way with closing statements, and we'll give you 2 minutes for this one.
So I'm sorry, I started off, didn't I, with opening statements?
Oh, I was just flopping back and forth, but yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, that's fine.
Well, thank you, Barb.
Go ahead, Sally.
Well, thank you. Again, I just want to thank the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce and the Broomfield Enterprise for, again, hosting and facilitating. Also for Barbara for doing this. And for all the people that attended, I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and to earn your support. I'm running to represent you because it's important that all voices are heard in this district. And we have an opportunity to create innovative policy that improves the lives of all Coloradans. My name is Sally Boccella, and I'm running to be your next state senator. Thanks.
Okay, Barb?
So I too would like to thank the Broomfield Enterprise and the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much. This is very valuable. It's great for Sally and I, but I think it's great for everyone else as well. So really appreciate it. And Sally, I apologize that we met before. I just didn't remember, so sorry about that. But anyways, I'm running for state senate because I want to be that senator for all of Colorado, for all of the people within the district. You know, I really am one of those people that brings together, collaborates, listens, builds consensus, brings people together, and finds solutions. So again, I think it's extremely important that we have a state senator who's willing to do that, who's willing to look at how do we get Coloradans back to work, and how do we reopen this economy in a very responsible way, because I think that's extremely important. So again, I'm running for state Senate. I'm a fourth-generation Coloradoan. This is my state. I love this state. I love serving the people in my community, serving the people in this state, and I would love to continue doing that. So I ask for your support and your vote on November 3rd. And if you'd like to find out more about my agenda and more about what I believe in and what I stand for, please go to kirkmeyerforcolorado.com. And thank you again.
Ross,
right.
may I also put a plug in for my website as well?
Sure.
Thank you, I appreciate that. If you'd like to learn more about Sally, about me, please visit sallyforcolorado.com, and I hope to earn your vote on November 3rd. Please get your ballots in early at your nearest drop box. Thanks so much.
I'm going to spread the thanks as well. I really appreciate you two taking the time to join us tonight. I think that sometimes these state races they don't get the press and the pub that they deserve. I think that giving people an opportunity to meet both of you, even though it's e-meeting these days, I think is just hugely valuable. And for you guys to take time out tonight and to join us is a little bit above and beyond. I think it's wonderful that you're here, and I want to thank the Chamber as well for reaching out and getting this rolling. And I'm not sure if Pat's going to make a return visit, but I think, oh, there he is.
Here he is. Can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Okay, good. I have to say, I'm going to echo all the thank yous. Sally Boccella, Barb Kirkmeyer, thank you so much for taking the time out this evening to chat with us and to chat with constituents in the Broomfield area. And of course, for those who weren't able to make it tonight, we will be putting up a recording of this on our YouTube channel on Thursday. To that end, you may have noticed there might have been a few blips of me in and out at some point. It turns out that the internet here at our office died about halfway through our session tonight. You were apparently fine. I checked it out. So there was no disruption on your end. I was flipping back and forth between my phone, rebooting the modem here, getting us back up and running again. So hopefully it wasn't too jarring on your end. I don't think it was, but the recording might be a little pieced together once we get that done. But hence is the reality that we're living in these days. I did also, hopefully everyone can see the screen that I put up. We do have some events coming up from the Broomfield Chamber throughout this month. We have a ribbon cutting with Corrective Spinal Care of Colorado coming up on October 1st. Our early bird business at Infinitus Pi iPi is October 7th. We have an education series on tackling your debt on October 8th. We have a business after hours, not sure the location yet, but that will be on October 21st. And you can get details on all of that at broomfieldchamber.com. You can also find out more about how to access the recording of this forum tonight, the one that we had on Thursday night of last week, and all of our other education series topics. So again, thank you, Barb. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Ross, for being a part of this tonight. And thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight live and who was watching this on video after the fact. We appreciate it, and I'll echo the sentiment of however you lean politically, the important thing is to vote this year. So make sure you are registered, make sure you get your ballots in, and take part in the process that we've all been afforded. I'm Pat Monticelli from the Broomfield Chamber. We appreciate you all again, and have a good night, everybody.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Thanks,
everybody.
Thank you again.